Welcome back to the Powered by Football podcast, your favourite Power Chair football podcast, hosted by Jackson Taylor. We've got a very exciting match week 6 for you today. We've got the second Sydney derby of the season, Sydney FC versus the Western Sydney Wanderers. And we have also got Football St George versus the Newcastle Jets. We have got a very fun interview, one of the funniest interviews I've ever done, with Tarek Brown of Sydney FC's championship side. And I should also note, before we get into the Matchday Roundup itself, that this is the last match week for a few weeks. We've got a couple of weeks off, and then we will be back on the 6th of May with our next episode, with games played on the Saturday beforehand, on the 3rd of May. So without further ado, knowing that, let's get into it. In the opening minutes of the Sydney derby in the championship, Sydney were applying some strong pressure but just weren't able to convert despite suffocating the Wanderers. The Wanderers, on the other hand, were slowly easing into the game rather than coming out guns blazing, but they just weren't able to convert their chances either. As the end of the half drew nearer, the Wanderers had increasing amounts of chances, but it just had no sting, no bite to it, and the halftime whistle blew with both sides at 0-0. The Wanderers returned in the second half with a very aggressive attacking tactical switch-up, which only held strong for a few minutes, with Riley Brown sneaking the ball between the Wanderers' defence, sending Sydney FC 1-0 up. Sydney's passing bliss continues as George Tiong and Riley Brown combine once again to double Sydney's lead in an almost identical goal to the first. Just really, really good passing from them. Sydney's pressure continues against a younger Wanderers side after a few substitutions, both myself and Jonathan Reyes going off. Eventually seeing George Tiong pounce upon a goal kick, getting Sydney's third. To claim his hat-trick, Riley Brown was able to confuse the Wanderers' defence, weaving the ball through to send his side 4-0 up. And a strong set of passes for the Sydney side sees Riley's brother Tarek Brown sneak a ball through, getting his first goal in this competition. I interviewed Tarek based on him getting his first goal in the competition. Here's that clip.
Hi, my name's Tarek Brown. My age is 9 and I play for Sydney FC.
So Tarek, you had a really, really good game on Saturday. I think you did quite well against my Western Sydney Wanderers.
Thank you very much.
How does it feel to get your first goal in reserve grade?
It feels pretty good that against it, knowing the A-League players were there. It was feeling pretty good. I was happy about it.
Yeah, and obviously getting that great support from the A-League, teams coming in. What was it like playing in front of such an audience?
Pressure, intense,
Yeah.
a lot of pressure.
Well, pressure makes diamonds, and you certainly did with that goal, didn't you?
And the fact that I made it in the last couple seconds.
And do you feel that their support, like Sydney FC coming down to help watch you guys and getting the chairs and doing all that, like how does that sort of motivate you to sort of grow as an athlete?
Feels happy, feels good, and it feels like that's my first bit onto my career.
You got a lot of potential, Tarek, so I think it's really, really exciting to see the amount of support that you guys are getting, and I look forward to seeing where you get in the future as an athlete. And one opportunity that you have that not a lot of people can say is that you get to play with your brother. So what's that like?
Knowing that my brother's there to support me in goals, I feel pretty good about that. And the one thing that I love about that we can talk to each other pretty easily because we have a lot of experience at home talking to each other.
All nice things, right? You're only nice things, yes?
I don't know about that.
Okay, then. That's lovely, Tarek. I appreciate that. Riley's obviously doing quite well for himself too in this competition.
Yeah, I know that because I've seen him.
That leads on to my final question. He's got 12 goals in this competition. Do you see yourself catching up to him?
Yeah, I think so. Only if I'm not in goals.
Well then, you better do your best to try and have a crack at it. Do you have any threatening messages you'd like to send to him that you're after his top goal scorer?
If you want to bash me up, nah, I'm gonna bash you up more.
Oh, that's really lovely, Tarek.
That's what I mean by not sure about that.
Oh, you're really funny, Tarek.
I
That
reckon I'm gonna be humorous when I'm older.
you already are, mate. I don't think you have to wait.
What about you? You don't have that much humor.
Oh God, you're coming out with it, are you? Just have a swing at everyone. Wow, Tarek. Wow.
I don't know
Hey,
why it's my nature, but it just
hey,
is.
that was pretty funny. I'll give you that. Good credit, mate.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our interview for today. Thank you for coming on. I know you were keen to get involved, so thank you for being keen.
I didn't know this was an interview.
Well, yeah, that's how it works. I talk to one person after every game, or like one game a week, and we get them on the podcast. So I'll send you the episode when it comes out on Tuesday morning.
I'm just kidding. I do know what this is. Goodbye. I hope you have a good day today or night.
Moving on to the Premiership game between Sydney FC and the Western Sydney Wanderers. And Sydney applied immediate pressure on the Wanderers defence, but just weren't able to convert in the opening minutes. A 2-on-1 chance for Sydney goes in. However, it was taken directly and there was no contact, thus the goal was not ruled and it stayed 0-0. Chris Suffield and Daniel O'Brien linked up well a minute or two later, the latter able to send his side 1-0 up after pressure was given too much on Andy Waite. It was an immediate response from the Wanderers, however, with a strong passing display seeing Ben Keat beating the Sydney defence, leaving a tap-in from an inch out for yours truly, Jackson Taylor, to equalise. In all honesty, I probably should have left it. It was Ben's goal, but I saw it and I went, yeah, why not? And just tapped it. Sydney got more chances throughout the rest of the first half, but they just weren't able to convert, and the halftime whistle meant that the score would stay at 1-1 between Sydney FC and the Western Sydney Wanderers. Early on in the second half, and a mishit goal kick from Steve Webb lands directly to Josh Ryan, who he pounces Josh on any situation he can. He sent Sydney 2-1 up. Sydney's pressure continued for the rest of the half, but they weren't able to convert for 10 minutes or so. That is until Sydney's passing linked the entire attack together, with Daniel O'Brien setting Fletcher ball well to make Sydney's lead 3-1. A strong set piece just before the end of the game sees Fletcher set Daniel up well after a few back and forth passes, sending Sydney 4-1 up. This momentum just snowballing and making the Wanderers' depression just, slump towards the end of the game. And they thought that their misery had ended, but minutes later, a deflected shot from Fletcher meets O'Brien once more, and it made it 5-1 as the full-time whistle blew. Sydney absolutely obliterating their rivals in the Sydney derby, with the final score being 5-1 to Sydney, a emphatic result for Sydney FC in both competitions. So, as much as I hate to say it, good job, guys. You did really, really well there. That was impressive. Moving over to the afternoon games, and we have got the Newcastle Jets versus Football St George in the Championship first. And the first goal saw some strong pressure from St George, where Jake Vidakovic was able to pounce and just strike through the Newcastle defence, and that just set the tone for the game, you could say. Jake continued his really strong seniority in that Championship side, and he assisted Ruby McLean to get their second, a really nice goal there. So the score was 2-0 at half-time. And, Bliss would continue for Ruby McLean with her attempt getting a second goal upon the return of the game, sending St George 3-0 up with an assist from Finn O'Donovan. And Finn would get his own goal minutes later in the second half, sending it 4-0 up. Some really good passing throughout this game for St George. But Newcastle also, showing their growth compared to the start of the season. Obviously, the results didn't look too kind for them. I think it was 8-0, 10-0, stuff like that. But, they are growing. You can see that they're, working well together. So I think they did quite well, Newcastle, and, St George will be happy with this result too. Moving over to the Premiership game between the Newcastle Jets and Football St George. And St George scored within about 5 minutes or so, with Mitch Albert scoring with an assist from Abdullah Karim. And just this pressure that was applied onto Newcastle really just, shook them to their core, you could say, because Newcastle won every game last year except for one. They conceded one goal. So after losing to Sydney FC last week, being 1-0 down at the break really made them go, we need to sort ourselves out. And the first half was fairly open, and the same could be said about the second. Just, very even passing, even works on both ends. With about 5 minutes left in the game, the Jets just finally cracked the St George defence, with Ryan Seck linking up with Chris Hastis, the latter able to sneak a goal in to equalise the game, and the result would stay that way. It was 1-1 between the Newcastle Jets and Football St George in the Premiership. Moving over to the Championship table and statistics, we will start with the table, and in first place is Sydney FC. They have 5 wins, 0 draws and 0 losses. They sit on 15 points. In second place is Hills United. They have 2 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. They have 7 points. In third place is Football St George. They have 2 wins, 1 draw and 2 losses. They also have 7 points. In fourth place is the Western Sydney Wanderers. They have 1 win, 2 draws and 2 losses. They have 5 points. And in last place is the Newcastle Jets. They have 0 wins, 0 draws and 5 losses with 0 points. Moving over to the statistics now, and the goal scorers chart is still led by Riley Brown after his emphatic hat-trick against the Western Sydney Wanderers. He has 12 goals. Second place is taken up by Hills United's Lachie Ninham. He has 7. And third place is taken up by Sydney FC's George Tiong. George leads the assist chart. He has 5 assists for Sydney FC. Second place in the assist chart is taken up by Football St George's Finn O'Donovan. He has 4. And Riley Brown of Sydney FC has 3. Over to the clean sheets. And Cody Town of Sydney FC has 4. Football St George's Ollie McPhail has 2. And a 5-way tie for third between the Western Sydney Wanderers' Jay Meta and Jackson Taylor, Hills United's Lachie Ninham and Bailey Pete, as well as Sydney FC's Harry Simmons. Moving over to the Premiership table and statistics, and in first place is the Newcastle Jets. They have 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. They have 10 points. In second place is Sydney FC. They have 3 wins, 1 draw and 2 losses. They have 10 points. In third place is Football St George. They have 2 wins, 3 draws and 1 loss. They have 9 points. In fourth place is the Western Sydney Wanderers. They have 1 win, 2 draws and 3 losses. They have 5 points. And in fifth place is Hills United with 1 win, 1 draw and 3 losses. They have 4 points. Moving over to the statistics now, and the goal scorers first. Daniel O'Brien of Sydney FC leads this chart. His hat-trick sees him in first with 8 goals. Football St George's Abdullah Karim and the Western Sydney Wanderers' Andy Waite are tied for second. They both have 5. And a tie for third between Dimitri Leolio-Davis of the Newcastle Jets and Jordan Crane, now of Football St George. Over to the assist chart now. And Fletcher Ball of Sydney FC leads that. He has 5. Abdullah Karim sits in second. He has 4. And a 3-way tie for third between the Newcastle Jets' Shannon and Lazark and Ryan Sack, as well as Sydney FC's Joshua Ryan. On the clean sheets chart, and Ryan Sack of the Newcastle Jets leads that. He has 3. And in second is Joshua Ryan of Sydney FC with 1. That concludes our episode today. We will not be having any matchday roundups for the next 2 weeks. However, I would like to be getting some interviews out, so stay tuned for those. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. We will now get into the end card. You can get involved in power chair football here in New South Wales as an athlete, coach, referee or volunteer by visiting the New South Wales Powerchair Football Association website, linked in the show notes. Our season takes place in Glenwood at the Valentine Sports Park from the 15th of February 2025 to the 12th of July 2025 every Saturday. Contact info@nswpfa.org.au for more information. Just a quick note that the views of this podcast are mine and mine alone. The opinions and thoughts expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the NSWPFA. If you want to get in touch with the podcast, you can follow us at Powered by Football Pod on Instagram, join our Facebook group, Powered by Football Podcast, or follow our Twitter account, Powered by Pod. Thanks for listening.